G'day folks, it's Nick Monk here. Today I'm bringing you a critique on the photograph that you can see in front of you. This photograph's been provided by Cameron Wilson, who's a friend of mine and a great and up-and-coming photographer in the northwest of Tasmania. He's kindly provided this and I thank him very much because it can be difficult to be critiqued and a little bit scary, I suppose, and not something that we see a lot of, particularly in the internet world these days. It's a little bit taboo to offer a critique without being asked. It's something that you see more often in camera club competitions than on the internet, to be honest, unless you ask for it. And it's great that he's provided this for me today to have a go at critiquing. This is a picture of Wandle Falls, which is located in northwest Tasmania, and I believe it's located just south of the Hellier Gorge on the Murchison Highway, and is a quick and easy walk into the falls. I haven't been there myself, but going by this photograph and some others I've seen, I certainly will next time I'm in the area. I'll stop and have a look and no doubt take some photographs myself. So I'm going to talk about light and composition in the first instance, and then talk a bit more about post-processing. Now, Cameron's already pointed out a few things to me in providing this photograph, which I completely understand and makes a lot of sense. Cameron went into Wandle Falls with his family, including very young children, and so he didn't have the opportunity to explore a wide variety of compositions and that sort of thing on the day, and I think he's pretty keen to go back and shoot again. So the first thing about this photograph that strikes me is it's taken from a fairly standard sort of viewpoint. It's a sort of viewpoint you'd expect if you ended up at a lookout at the end of the path. I'm not sure if that's the case or whether Cameron's explored significantly further, but it sort of strikes me as the shot that you'd take when you first get to a location as a landscape photographer, the one where the landscape opens up and you see the prize being Wandle Falls and you say, cool, and you take a photograph. Maybe not your first, maybe your second, your third, but that's the sort of view that I think we're looking at here. And Cam, obviously with his kids in tow, was probably pretty keen to make sure that they were all safe and enjoying themselves at the same time. Now, there's a few things here that I think with a little bit of extra care, Cam could have improved. The first thing that strikes me here is, well, firstly, technically this photograph is beautiful, it really is. It's got just great detail. It's really, really pleasant to look at in close, as you can see. And I'll just drag it up. It doesn't like dragging too much while it's recording. It might be a memory problem from my old computer, but you can see here it's just beautiful details. It's a 1 second exposure that Cam's chosen, and really perfect for this type of photography. Just looks great. I'll zoom back out again. But the first thing that really strikes me from a compositional point of view is this corner here. Okay, and what we do have, I've shown you that this is really detailed and beautifully in focus, but there's one portion of the photograph that's not in focus, and that's this small fern here. Okay, now obviously that is present and that is there, so what can you do about it? Well, you can take a step to the left or a step to the right, or put your tripod up or put your tripod down, but I suspect this fern was always going to be there because it's quite close to the lens, and he's selected a reasonably wide angle for this shot. You need to be mindful of these sort of things when doing landscape photography. As they're just a bit distracting. It was probably when I first opened up the photograph. I immediately saw the beautiful waterfall, but I was drawn very quickly to an out of focus object. Now, sometimes out of focus objects in landscapes are perfectly fine, but it depends a lot on framing and where they are and what they are and just how intrusive or otherwise that they are. My suggestion would be for this would be to see, if you notice that it's going to be in the frame and going to be difficult to get in focus with the rest of your image, that you might try to take the photo while holding the fern back. There've been many times when I've been taking photographs that I've had both arms pulling back branches and leaves and just keeping them out of the frame while holding my breath and balancing on one leg and doing everything at once. I suspect this probably could have been pulled back out of the way. Now, the absolute last thing that you should do is break branches off or break anything off. Anything that's living shouldn't be disturbed in terms of breaking in our natural areas. That's just not on. But ferns and other branches can often just be pulled back just so they're out of the frame while you take the photograph. And that's what I reckon would have been a good way of keeping that fern from the corner there. The other thing that strikes me quickly, excuse me, is we have the waterfall here, but we can't see the top of the waterfall because it's obscured slightly by this myrtle branch. Now, clearly that'd be too far away to try and pull out of the way, as I suggested for the fern. But what you could do here is perhaps lower the viewpoint of the tripod, so get closer to the ground, and that would have caused a separation between the top of the waterfall and the bottom of the branch, and allowed it to be completely revealed. It's one thing that you always sort of look for in compositions. The cliche for this would be the photograph of a person that has a telegraph pole sticking out of the top of their head, that sort of thing. So it's just looking to separate elements. It's not unpleasant. It's not something that will ruin the shot, but it would just help improve it perhaps if we could just get a little bit of separation between the top of the falls and that myrtle. Clearly, also there are a lot of areas here that could have been further explored, but as I said, Cam had some restrictions on the day, and he's certainly pointed out these mossy rocks down here, and they're not particularly prominent in the photograph as they are at the moment, but they could serve very well as a nice prominent foreground for a landscape photographer that wanted to get a bit close to the action. Wear a pair of gumboots, take the boots off, wear a pair of waders, and just get in front of the waterfall and make the waterfall and these rocks the main subject. It certainly would be a good thing for Cam and others to explore in the future. It's such a beautiful waterfall, it really is, and it's just beautiful with the long exposure. The other thing with waterfalls are they're difficult to shoot in bright contrasty situations such as the middle of the day, even on cloudy days in the middle of the day. certainly in bright sunny days, they're very difficult to photograph. And I would always suggest, and look, I don't know what time Cam took this or what the lighting conditions really were like, but I would always suggest if you're going out to make a mission of a waterfall for photographing, that you maybe leave it until late in the afternoon or early in the morning, or pick your weather really well. You can go in the middle of the day when you've got really overcast, heavy cloud conditions. Often the best time to photograph a waterfall would be during when it's raining, particularly that sort of drizzly rain. However, that creates lots of other problems. Technically, it's difficult. It's hard to change lenses. It's hard to keep water off the lenses. So you do introduce other problems. But that sort of light, that low level, very low contrast light produced by that sort of weather is really the ideal time to be taking photographs. And there's certainly nothing wrong with the light in this photograph. Cam did show me a before shot before he'd done some processing work, and there was certainly a lot more contrast, and this area here and the forest areas were significantly darker, which he's had to bring out with some excellent post-processing work. So I guess I've lost my train of thought now, silly me. Well, I guess what I was saying, a bit of a pause. I completely lost my train of thought, so I apologise for that. I don't know where I was or what I was talking about, to be honest. So we'll start afresh. Yeah, so the light, I think I was talking about. He's done very well to harness the light that was there and really give us a pleasing photograph out of what wasn't a simple job to do from what he showed me with his original file. So he's done a really good job. Now, getting back to the composition, it's a little... It doesn't seem to know exactly where it wants to go. This is an overall observation. It's pleasant and it records the scene really well. And we have the main subject being the waterfall. Now, it is probably a little central for me. And we do have the river coming towards us straight from there down the centre of the photograph, but it's not particularly balanced because we have this foliage here, but then we have this rocks here. So if you're going to have a central focal point rather than offset on the rule of thirds, so on one of the intersections such as here, or here, or here, or here. It's got to have a sense of balance if you're going to have something more central in the middle, and it's just a little bit off kilter here with that. Obviously, this is the viewpoint that he was able to use at the time. I'm not sure, without being there, having seen it, how I would improve that other than go exploring for more compositions. And I suspect there are a lot more once you get down to the creek level and have a really good explore. But here it's a pleasant composition, but it's not a striking composition in that it doesn't have a really bold foreground or a really bold focal point. Of course, this is just my opinion. I'd be happy for anyone to call me out on it. Yeah, it is a lovely photograph, but just I think a few things could be done just to improve the viewpoint.